Welcome back to Grimverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight, we walk into the cold corridors of the Spanish Alcázar. This is the story of Felipe Próspero, the fragile heir created by generations of royal inbreeding, the child Spain hoped would save an empire, and the life that revealed how power can destroy even its youngest victims. They wanted a perfect heir, so they married their cousins, and from those unions came children who were born sick, born deformed, born dying. Felipe Próspero was the final warning, a prince so fragile that courtiers held their breath every time he tried to take his own. His body carried the entire family tree, twisted, weakened, collapsing under itself. Spain called him salvation, but everyone who saw him up close knew the truth. This wasn't a miracle. It was the bill for centuries of inbreeding, and the empire had run out of time to pay. You stand in a dim corridor of the Alcázar Palace. You push the door open. A sliver of light spills out, warm and trembling like a candle about to die. Inside, the air smells of incense and wet linen. And then you hear it. A soft, uneven breath. The fragile gasp of a newborn fighting for life. Your footsteps echo as you step inside. The palace seems to hold its breath with you. And in that small, flickering room, you sense an unsettling truth. An empire's future is resting in a cradle far too small to carry its weight. Take a slow breath. Let your day loosen its grip. You're safe here. And if these quiet journeys into the past bring you comfort, feel free to gently like and subscribe. It helps more night wanderers find their way home. Dim the lights. Let the steady hum in your room guide your breathing. Settle your shoulders. Let your thoughts fall into softness. We're going somewhere old and heavy with secrets. It is November 28th, 1657. A bell tolls over Madrid, and a fragile heir has just entered a world already collapsing beneath his tiny feet. The hallway around you holds a quiet that feels intentional, like the walls know something you don't. Cold air drifts across your wrists. Your steps echo softly on the stone floor. Somewhere ahead, someone whispers a prayer. A desperate one. Inside the chamber, at the end of the corridor, a child is being born. Not just any child. The child the court has begged the heavens for. Felipe Próspero arrives on a cold morning in 1657. Madrid barely exhales, and the midwife lifts him with both hands, as though he might slip into another world if she blinks. His skin is pale, almost translucent. His tiny limbs shake with every breath. Breathing looks like work he didn't sign up for. You stand in the doorway. Courtiers hover in stiff silence. Every face repeats the same hope. Let this one live. A priest mutters blessings under his breath. Too fast. Too frantic. Superstition fills the room like smoke. Someone opens a window. Cold air runs across the floor. Felipe's chest rises in a thin, uneven rhythm. The room leans forward to listen. You look at Queen Mariana. Her face softens with relief, but her eyes hold something older. A quiet dread. She has buried children before. Felipe is instantly declared a miracle. Courtiers whisper the word like it might break. He does look miraculous, just not in the way they want. The Habsburgs call him salvation, but the truth sits in the corner, silent and patient. He is the final attempt of a dynasty that has looped back into itself too many times. You step inside the room. The smell of incense wraps around you. Felipe lets out a thin cry, small, apologetic, a sound too soft for a future king. The priests call it a good sign. The doctors nod because disagreeing would ruin the moment. Felipe is placed into a cradle lined with embroidered linen. It looks enormous compared to him, or perhaps he is simply too small for the life waiting outside it. He blinks slowly, as if negotiating with the world one breath at a time. You watch his chest rise, then fall. then rise again, just barely. Someone behind you whispers, "He will save Spain." You keep your eyes on the trembling cradle. Sometimes the softest breaths carry the loudest warnings. You step a little closer to the cradle. Felipe sleeps with the unease of someone already negotiating with fate. His breaths remain thin, almost borrowed, but his fragility doesn't begin here. Not in this room, not even with his parents. It begins long before, in generations of Habsburg weddings that brought cousins together with the same enthusiasm most families reserve for holiday dinners. They called it strategy. Keep the blood pure. Keep the power inside the family. Noble goals, if you ignore biology altogether. The truth is simpler and colder. The Habsburgs protected their dynasty by folding it in on itself like a badly copied painting. You look at the boy again. His small face carries shadows of people he never met. Uncles, aunts, cousins who were also something else. The family tree feels less like a tree and more like a circle drawn by someone very tired. The Habsburg jaw, that famous tragic signature, appears in portraits long before Felipe. Painters softened it. Diplomats ignored it. Doctors blamed the weather. But the symptoms told their own story. Water retention, weak limbs, slow development, skulls shaped in ways nature rarely intends. Children born too soon, or not for long. You steady yourself beside a tall iron candelabrum. Its warmth doesn't quite reach your hands. You can feel the weight of centuries in this room, pressing down on a child barely the length of your forearm. Felipe's ancestors married to keep crowns on the right heads. Unfortunately, the heads kept getting weaker, but no one dared suggest a different strategy. Power rarely listens to advice, especially medical advice. You imagine the royal advisors discussing it, softly, carefully, with the kind of caution one uses when speaking near a sleeping lion. He should marry outside the family. Yes, well, his mother is also his father's niece. Silence. A cough. Perhaps the Holy Roman Empire will send another cousin. Dry humor is the only way to survive this conversation. Back at the cradle, Felipe stirs. He curls inward, as if trying to escape the weight of genes he never chose. You lean closer. The room feels smaller. He is the heir to one of the greatest empires in Europe, and yet his body bears the warnings carved by generations. A whisper drifts across the chamber. God has blessed him. You almost smile. Even miracles get tired of being blamed for everything. The midwife adjusts his blanket. Her eyes flicker with the knowledge common people carry quietly, while nobles debate loudly. She has seen children like this before. They rarely stay long. You let your gaze rest on him, so tiny, so fragile, so unmistakably Habsburg, a dynasty built on power, held together by marriage contracts, and undone by its own insistence on staying pure. The candle beside you sputters once, a small, reluctant flame, not unlike the child before you. For all their crowns and conquests, the Habsburgs could never conquer genetics. The room grows warmer as more candles are lit. Their light softens the stone walls, but not the atmosphere. That remains heavy, thick with worry. Felipe sleeps in uneasy intervals, small breaths, short pauses, as if each inhale needs approval. You watch a nurse hover nearby. She moves with the precision of someone tending to a glass figurine. One wrong touch, and the entire empire might crack. His childhood begins like this, not with laughter, but with supervision. Endless, exhausting, relentless. Every cough is documented. Every shiver is debated. Every restless night becomes a meeting. Spain, quite literally, loses sleep over one small boy. You step back and feel the floor under you cool again. Somewhere down the hall, a servant mutters a prayer. Another hangs a charm behind the door. Superstition becomes a second language in this palace. The doctors arrive often, too often. Their faces tighten when they examine him. Notes are whispered, never written. Bad news travels more quietly than good. You lean over Felipe's cradle. He looks peaceful in sleep, but his body tells another story. Thin arms, weak muscle tone, a chest that lifts in hesitant arcs. The Queen's ladies bring amulets, saints, ribbons, silver medallions, anything that might hold back the legacy sitting in his blood. A priest insists on daily blessings. A second priest recommends hourly ones. A third suggests the devil himself is lurking nearby, which is always the sign of a man who has run out of medical vocabulary. You follow one of the attendants into the nursery. The air here smells of lavender and fear. Mostly fear. Felipe sits supported by cushions, his eyes drifting toward the window, as though sunlight is something he has to study. He tries to lift his hand. It trembles. The movement stops halfway. The nurse pretends not to notice. Pretending is practically a job requirement in this palace. Painters are summoned regularly. Their assignment is simple. Make him look less fragile, stronger, rosier. There is not enough pigment in Spain to achieve that, but they try anyway. You stand behind one of them as he paints. His brush hesitates, then corrects the jawline, softens the hollow cheeks, adds life where life refuses to appear. History, as always, looks better on canvas. Felipe grows, but slowly. Every milestone is late. Every celebration is cautious. Everyone waits for good news that never quite arrives. At night, you watch from the doorway as nurses rock him gently. Their motion is slow, almost hypnotic. A lullaby for a boy who carries the fears of an empire on his ribs. He exhales softly. The sound is barely there, barely real. For a child born to be king, he never breathes like one. The palace feels different now. Not louder, not quieter, just thinner. As if every sound hits the air and then decides not to stay. You walk through the corridor where Felipe once slept. The candles burn low. Their flames lean to one side, as though exhausted. Servants keep their voices low. They move with the slow, deliberate steps of people carrying a shared fear. The kind everyone already knows, but no one wants to name. Felipe is ill again. Not the small illnesses of childhood. The other kind. The kind that makes adults exchange glances instead of words. You enter his chamber. The air is warm, too warm, thick with incense and whispered prayers. He lies small against the pillows, his skin pale with a bluish tint that tells its own story. A physician stands nearby. He looks at the floor more than the child. That is never a good sign. You hear him murmur about fever, about swelling, about the usual weaknesses of his lineage. A nurse wipes Felipe's forehead. The cloth trembles in her hand. Or maybe it's her. Fear has a way of moving on its own. Felipe tries to open his eyes. The effort seems enormous. His chest rises shallowly, then pauses, then rises again in a stuttering rhythm that makes the room hold its breath with him. You step closer. The scent of medicinal herbs lingers in the air. Nothing helps. Nothing ever really did. Someone starts a prayer. Quiet. Desperate. Half ritual, half resignation. Felipe's fingers twitch once. A tiny motion, like a failed attempt to stay in the world. Then his breathing slows. Slows again. Then stops in a silence that feels heavier than any sound. No one moves at first. The nurse freezes mid-gesture. The priest's lips stop on an unfinished line. A servant drops a rosary, the beads scattering across the floor like a small rain of regret. You exhale without meaning to. The room seems to collapse inward, not with noise, but with the weight of something final. The Queen arrives moments later. Her steps are soft, but her grief is not. She touches her son's cheek with a tenderness sharpened by dread. Mothers always know before anyone says a word. A physician bows his head. A priest whispers something about God's will. Nobody believes it, not even him. Felipe Próspero, the last fragile hope of the Spanish Habsburgs, dies at the age of 4. The palace stands still. Madrid holds its breath, and the empire quietly realizes that it has just lost more than a child. The corridors outside Felipe's chamber stay dim for days. No one dares relight the larger chandeliers. Light feels inappropriate when the empire's last hope has just gone out. You walk past servants who keep their eyes down, past guards who look as though they've aged overnight, past courtiers whose silence is the only honest thing they've offered in years. Felipe is gone, and with him, the fragile thread holding Spain's future together. But empires don't pause for grief. Only people do. And even then, not for long. You turn into the grand hallway. The air is heavier here, full of strategy, resentment, and the metallic scent of political ambition. Queen Mariana of Austria stands at the center of it all, still, controlled, a quiet storm in black silk. She has lost a child, but she has not lost her position. Not yet. Her advisors gather around her, whispering about succession, alliances, and the need for stability. They speak softly, as though volume might wake old ghosts. You sense the shift before anyone admits it. Power is rearranging itself, like furniture scraped slowly in the dark. Don Juan de Austria, the king's ambitious half-brother, begins to rise in the shadows. He doesn't say much. He doesn't need to. Grief leaves openings that ambition fills very neatly. Europe watches all of this from a very safe distance. Ambassadors write frantic letters. Rulers study maps with renewed interest. The fall of one child is the tremor beneath many crowns. You stop near a tall window. The glass is cold against your fingertips. Outside, Madrid moves as usual. Markets, horses, voices in the streets. But the palace feels like a lung mid-inhale, waiting, uncertain. Felipe's death forces new questions, dangerous ones. Who inherits next? Who controls the regency? Which alliances will crack first? And beneath all those questions lies a truth no courtier dares say aloud. Spain has run out of healthy heirs. The dynasty is shrinking from the inside out. You walk past a council meeting in progress. Arguments rise and fall like the tide. One minister blames France. Another blames God. Another blames fate, which is usually what people say when the real cause is too embarrassing to repeat. Queen Mariana holds her ground. Her voice stays steady, but her eyes betray exhaustion, not from grief alone, but from the knowledge that she now carries an entire empire on a thread fraying at both ends. You linger at the doorway, listening as the council dissolves into quiet panic. Names are whispered, treaties reconsidered, enemies re-evaluated. A child has died, and suddenly everyone remembers how fragile a crown really is. You walk away slowly. The palace feels colder with each step. History has shifted again, quietly, the way it always does at first. Felipe Próspero leaves behind no heirs, no victories, no legacy carved in stone. Only a ripple, soft, small, and capable of tilting an entire continent. Empires rarely fall with noise. Sometimes they fall with a child's last breath. The room grows quiet again. The air softens. Your breath settles. The echoes of the Alcázar fade like distant footsteps, leaving only the faint warmth of candlelight and the slow hush of a palace long gone. You can almost feel the worn stone under your hand, the cold windows, the heavy silence that once held a fragile child and an empire waiting for a miracle. Now, gently, we step back from that world, as if closing a door without letting it make a sound. The night around you feels familiar again, steady and real, like returning to your own heartbeat after wandering through someone else's century. If this quiet journey through history brought you comfort or curiosity, feel free to leave a soft like or share the story with someone who enjoys these late-night wanderings. And if you wish to explore more forgotten corners of the past, you are always welcome to subscribe and rest here with us again. For now, let the candles dim. Let the palace fall back into darkness, and let your mind drift wherever sleep is waiting. Goodbye, and we will meet again